Everybody knows the Colosseum, and everyone knows what it looks like. Or do they? Because the truth is, a huge chunk of it is missing. So what happened? How and why did half of the greatest Roman amphitheater, one of the 7 wonders of the world, vanish? This is History Simplified, and today we'll be discussing the history of the missing half of the Roman Colosseum. Let's get into it. For almost 500 years, the Colosseum was the Roman Empire's most impressive arena. We all know its story and what happened inside of it. Emperor after emperor sponsored spectacles to astonish and delight the Roman public. Exotic and rare species of animals from the farthest reaches of the world were hunted and brought to awe and astound its crowds. Criminals were devoured by bears in elaborate mythological fights, and the empire's greatest gladiators dueled on its sands. Over its half-millennium of use, the Colosseum underwent a long series of renovations, the most important of these taking place in the early 3rd century when a fire destroyed the upper deck of its seating. It took the very busy emperors of Rome 5 years to restore the building, and signs of their less than perfect repairs are still visible all along its north wall. The spectacles held in the Colosseum also changed over the centuries. The most impressive, unsurprisingly, were held during Rome's heyday during times of victory and blood-soaked conquest. To celebrate his victory over Dacia, for example, the Emperor Trajan celebrated with a short little festival, which featured a whopping 123 days of straight games, in the course of which 5,000 pairs of gladiators fought and 11,000 animals were killed. However, from the early mid-3rd century onward, the quality of the games started to slip along with the empire itself. The later Roman emperors were poorer and greedier and more war-torn than their predecessors. They didn't tend to spend money on the city of Rome, and definitely not on the Colosseum. And in the 5th century, gladiatorial games came to a complete stop. The animal hunts, however, continued. They lasted longer, in fact, than the Western Roman Empire itself. The last hunts were even sponsored by the barbarian kings themselves. These kings, however, had little interest in the games, and the final recorded hunts in the Colosseum were held in the year 523. And now we're into the medieval age. Within a few centuries, all understanding of the Colosseum's function was lost. Some claimed it had been a temple of the sun and had originally been crowned with a vast golden dome. Others believed that the structure was once a temple devoted to all the Roman gods and that there was once a massive statue of Jupiter in the arena. There were also some peculiar myths surrounding the Roman poet Virgil, who, according to medieval legend, was transformed into a powerful magician. It was said that he had built the Colosseum with the help of his magical demons and used it as a theater for bringing the dead back to life. So, yeah. The Colosseum was already half ruined at the beginning of the medieval ages, and steadily it fell apart throughout the next millennium. Earthquakes were the main natural cause of the confusion. The tall masonry structure of the Colosseum was susceptible to seismic damage like any other similar structure. The Colosseum's massive concrete foundations only extended down to the bedrock on the north side of the building. However, on the south side, the foundation rested on a waterlogged sediment. This unstable subsoil amplified the seismic shocks and gradually led to the collapse of half of the building. Interestingly, the Colosseum's greatest enemies were the Romans themselves. The building's walls were constructed with a type of fine limestone known as travertine, while its seats were made of marble. Both of these stones were highly sought after by medieval builders. Surprising. Marble and travertine were not only easy and attractive to reuse, they could also both be burnt into kilns and made lime for mortar. The pillaging of the Colosseum stone began even before the final games were staged in the arena and continued on a massive scale for more than 1,000 years. The Colosseum wasn't just a quarry. For much of the medieval ages, hundreds of people lived in its ruinous vaults and passageways. There were houses, complete with courtyards and little gardens. There were shops with wooden awnings and storage lofts. There were stables, churches, and at one point there was even a full-blown fortified palace. Remarkably, many of the medieval Colosseum's inhabitants were lime burners who spent their days tearing apart the building in which they were squatting. Thanks largely to their efforts, the Colosseum became an increasingly inhospitable place to live. Finally, in 1349, an earthquake brought down the entire south half of the Colosseum circuit wall, forming a colossal pile of rubble. Over the next 4 centuries, this heap, called the Colosseum's Thigh, built half of the churches in Renaissance Rome. There's even a story back in 1452 when a supposed hard-working contractor managed to haul away over 2,500 cartloads of stone from the Colosseum. However, despite all of this, a substantial part of the Colosseum still stands today thanks to deliberate preservation efforts. The north side of the Colosseum, which used to overlook the route connecting the Lateran Palace with the Vatican, was safeguarded by the popes to create a majestic backdrop for the processions. Basically, they were like, hey guys, please stop destroying it or God will punish you, because he wants us to have a nice view. So, yeah. While some popes like Pius, yes, his name was Pius, considered destroying the arena's remains, the majority were firm about preserving this piece of Rome's ancient history. And of course, in the 1800s and 1900s, the public obsession with ancient Rome solidified its safety in the hands of the Italian government. So, thanks to the impact of earthquakes and the dedicated preservation work by the popes, we get to marvel at half of the Colosseum today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please consider liking and subscribing and commenting. Once again, thank you so much. Everybody, have a great day.